Before we begin, I need you to understand something unsettling. Most ancient myths whisper about gods, some benevolent, some monstrous, but scattered across forbidden texts and erased scriptures is the same echoing warning. There were beings older than every pantheon, older than heaven, older than hell, and older than the idea of God itself. These were not gods in the sense we imagine. They were architects, cosmic regulators, entities woven into the early machinery of reality long before humans, angels, or demons existed. And for thousands of years, humanity was never meant to know their names. Their existence was deliberately buried, scattered, and rewritten. But tonight, whispers, you're going to hear their story. If you've been following this channel, you already know how deep these rabbit holes go. So before we break the seal on the 9 ancient gods humanity was never meant to know, support this channel by liking this video, subscribing, and commenting your thoughts. It genuinely helps summon this content back into the algorithm's strange twitching ecosystem. All right, let's begin. Imagine a time before religion, before the first human carved symbols into stone, before language, before memory. According to Gnostic fragments, Vedic hymns, Zoroastrian priestly lore, and theosophical transmissions, there was once a council of 9. Not 9 gods ruling over humans, but 9 primordial intelligences governing the foundations of existence itself. These entities were not worshipped, they were feared. They were said to operate like cosmic architects, performing tasks so vast and incomprehensible that later civilizations could only mythologize them as deities. As we walk through their stories, pay attention, because these 9 figures appear across civilizations that never met, never communicated, and never shared a page of history. And yet they described the same 9. Why? Why would cultures oceans apart describe the same cosmic council? That is the question that historians avoid and theologians dread. So let's start with the first of the 9, the architect of memory, known in Vedic cosmology as the silent shaper, hinted at in Gnosticism as the one who measures the breadth of eternity. This being was believed to encode the blueprint of all experiences, not events, experiences, meaning your emotions, your fears, your ability to dream or imagine. Those were considered installations, placed deliberately by this entity. In Zoroastrian texts, a mysterious being called Bahram of the first light held this same role. In occult theosophy, an unspoken 9th ray governs memory and consciousness. Do you see the pattern? They all point to the same presence. But the second of the 9 is even stranger, the keeper of forms. In proto-Kabbalistic lore, this being is described as the one who draws the outline of living beings before the breath of life enters them. In Vedic metaphysics, it aligns with the cosmic Shakti before she becomes personified. In Gnostic texts, it manifests as an entity that shapes the vessel before the spark descends. This suggests something terrifying, that biological forms, humans, animals, even celestial beings, may have originated from a singular pre-human design, a template, a mold. And if that idea unsettles you just a bit, good, because the truth becomes even darker. But before we descend further, if you're still here and still breathing steadily, drop a comment below. Tell me, do you believe these entities existed? Or were they symbols of forces beyond human comprehension? Your thoughts genuinely help fuel the discussion and help this video reach more people who are searching for answers in places that religion conveniently avoids. Now, the third of the 9, the regulator of cycles. This being appears in almost every ancient cosmology, but under different names. Kronos in Greek Esoterica, Kala in Sanskrit traditions, and Zervan in Persian cosmology. But all these names share one core concept. Time is not natural. It is regulated, controlled, channeled. And the entity doing this regulation is described as pre-creation, pre-matter, pre-light. In the oldest Gnostic writings, it is named simply Aeon O, the one that keeps the wheel turning. This suggests that time, the flow, the rhythm, the decay, is not a passive background feature. It is an engineered system, designed, maintained, perhaps even weaponized. And that brings us to the fourth member of the council, the Warden of Thresholds. This entity appears in shamanic traditions, early Egyptian hymns, and forgotten Mesopotamian spells. It guards the boundaries between worlds, between the physical and astral, between life and death, between form and formlessness. In some texts, it appears as a luminous being, in others, as a shadow. The secret societies of the 18th and 19th centuries believed this being was responsible for reincarnation, determining which soul enters which life and why. A cosmic immigration officer, deciding your fate. No pressure. We're going deeper, much deeper. The fifth of the nine is the harbinger of desire, not lust, desire. The impulse that drives creation, evolution, hunger, ambition, fear, and longing. Gnostics believed this force implanted desire into early humans as a way to ensure they would keep moving, keep seeking, keep breaking boundaries. In Vedic texts, this force is called Kamadeva, before the myths distort him. But in Zoroastrian lore, this entity is depicted more ominously, as the spark that leads to both creation and destruction. And here's where things twist. If this being shaped human desire, then human civilizations, religions, wars, inventions, and even spiritual aspirations might have been influenced by this cosmic engine. Intentionally. But we've only revealed 5 so far. 4 remain. And the next ones will make you question everything you've ever believed about gods, angels, and the hidden structure of reality. Stay with me. We continue in the next block. As we continue unraveling the Council of Nine, remember this isn't just mythology stitched together from ancient scraps. These entities appear in civilizations separated by oceans, epochs, even linguistic families. That alone should make your pulse shift just a little. And now we arrive at the 6th of the 9, the governor of conflict. In Gnostic fragments, it is called the divider, an entity that introduces polarity into existence, light and dark, order and chaos, life and death. In Vedic cosmology, this echoes the shadow asuras, not as demons, but as forces meant to oppose the devas to maintain balance. In Zoroastrianism, this presence becomes the primordial tension between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. But older versions of the myth suggest both forces answer to a higher regulating intelligence. Think about that. Even dualism itself, good versus evil, may have been engineered, not a cosmic accident, not a moral war, but an intentional design to ensure creation experiences friction and therefore growth. This changes everything. Because if conflict is engineered, then peace is not the default state of existence, it is the reward, or the anomaly, and conflict is the rule. And if conflict is the rule, we must ask the uncomfortable question, who benefits from orchestrating it? We'll return to that later because the seventh member of this council reshapes the entire conversation, the weaver of possibilities. In occult theosophy, this entity is the one who divides potential outcomes into branching pathways. In Kabbalistic mysticism, it echoes the idea of the Sephirot, Netzach, and Hod, forces that manifest potential and limitation. In Vedic metaphysics, it parallels Maya, not illusion as a trick, but as a filter of infinite possibilities into a chosen reality, which means what you call choice may only be the final step of a long sequence of invisible filters designed by this cosmic weaver. Your fears, intuitions, déjà vu moments, even the path that led you to watch this video right now, those could be the results of subtle currents laid down eons ago. Now breathe for a second. Let that sink in. And if you're still here, still following the breadcrumbs, support the channel by liking this video and commenting your thoughts. I read every single comment, and your discussion keeps this community alive. Now, let's shift into deeper waters. The eighth of the nine is the curator of species. Yes, species, as in the differentiation of life forms across realms. In Sumerian cuneiform, hidden within lesser-known tablets, there are references to a pre-Anunnaki group of pattern keepers who divided living beings into networks of purpose. Theosophical groups called this being the root architect, the one who guided humanity through its evolutionary stages. But here's the disturbing detail. Many civilizations believed this entity wasn't just shaping physical life. They believed it shaped astral species too. Souls, spirits, beings made of memory, energy, breath, or fire. They all had classifications, families, hierarchies, which means angels and demons may not be opposites or rivals. They could be different species under one administrative cosmic intelligence. Makes heaven and hell sound a little less dramatic and a lot more bureaucratic, doesn't it? But now, we reach the ninth and final member of the council, the one civilizations feared most, the one whose name was erased more aggressively than any other, the auditor. The being responsible for observing, evaluating, and when necessary, resetting entire worlds. Flood myths, cosmic destruction cycles, the purification events recorded across continents, all attributed to this presence. In Gnostic tradition, it is the Silent One who lifts the veil when the cycle ends. In Vedic cosmology, it resembles Shiva as the cosmic dissolver, except earlier texts describe a dissolver who existed before Shiva. In Persian lore, there is a mention of a being who ends the age when the balance of existence tilts too far. Every ancient world has a reset god. But none were worshipped. They were feared. Which raises a question. Is the council still active? Are they still regulating humanity? Some secret societies believed yes. The Rosicrucians hinted that the nine subtly guide the rise and fall of empires. The Theosophical Society openly referred to a hidden nine who oversee human development. NASA's occult-tinted founders even had a group called the Council of Nine they believed communicated through seances. Coincidence? Sure. And I'm the king of Babylon. No. This pattern appears because something ancient is being remembered. And as you listen to this, ask yourself, why is the number 9 sacred in so many traditions? Why does it symbolize completion, cycles, divine order, cosmic authority? 9 muses, 9 unknown men, 9 worlds of Norse myth, 9 celestial hierarchies, 9 gates of the underworld. 9, 9, 9. It repeats like a fingerprint burned into the structure of reality itself. And now that we've introduced all 9 entities, we can begin truly unraveling what they wanted, how they shaped humanity, and why they were erased from every mainstream religion. Stick with me. The descent continues in the next block. Now that you know the identities of the 9, we can finally address the forbidden question lurking beneath every ancient myth. What did they want from humanity? Because beings that old, that powerful, don't create for entertainment. They create because creation serves purpose. And every civilization offers the same chilling clue. Humans were not the first project. We were the replacement. The Gnostics hint at a proto-species, beings of pure thought, luminous and flawless, who failed their role in the cosmic design. Vedic mysticism speaks of previous creations that dissolved before taking form. Hermetic texts claim earlier attempts at humanity became too aware, too fast, forcing a reset. So here's the idea that religions desperately avoid. Humanity may not be the intended masterpiece, but the salvageable version. The one that could be controlled, guided, regulated. And who would regulate us? The 9. But not as gods to be worshipped, as overseers. When you look at global mythologies with this lens, everything changes. Take the flood myths. Over 200 cultures have them. Floods that reset the world because humanity had deviated from its intended path. Coincidence? Or the auditor's fingerprint? Take the sudden rise of agriculture across distant continents. The same century, the same pattern, the same structure. Was that random evolution, or the curator of species intervening? Consider the emergence of writing. Civilizations thousands of miles apart suddenly developing symbolic language. That has always been an uncomfortable coincidence. Unless the architect of memory needed a new way to stabilize human consciousness. And here's where things get even more disturbing. Ancient secret societies believed the 9 didn't just shape humanity in the distant past. They periodically intervene. The Rosicrucians claimed visions from the 9 guided the birth of certain empires. The Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor wrote that the 9 choose key individuals throughout history as bridges, humans capable of receiving certain ideas or impulses. Nikola Tesla spoke of receiving flashes of future technology. Joan of Arc claimed to hear celestial commands. Many prophets described voices not like God, but like a council. Whispers. What if these were not hallucinations or divine visions, but instructions? And if so, why them? Why those people? Pauses. The concept of chosen ones appears in every religion, but chosen by whom? What if the 9 weren't selecting messengers to preach faith, but tools to gently steer human destiny in a direction aligned with their original design? Sarcastically, a divine nudge here, a civilization-altering idea there. Nothing suspicious, nothing obvious, just enough influence to keep the long project on track. But here's where the plot twists in a way even conspiracy theorists rarely explore. What if the 9 don't fully agree with one another?
Gnosticism hints at cosmic disagreements among the eons. Vedic lore describes divine councils arguing about humanity's fate. Zoroastrianism speaks of cosmic committees debating cycles of creation and destruction. Titan delivery. Think about it. 9 primordial intelligences, 9 agendas, 9 philosophies, 9 visions for what existence should become, and humanity stuck in the middle. Some would nurture us, some would test us, and some would prune us. Now let me ask you directly. Tell me in the comments after this video, do you think humanity shows signs of being shaped or signs of being corrected? Because the oldest civilizations didn't believe we were progressing naturally. They believed we were being shepherded, and sometimes culled. But the real terrifying part isn't that they shaped us. It's that their influence may still be active, hidden in synchronicities, embedded in human intuition, echoing through global events, and appearing in the rise and fall of powerful bloodlines, empires, and faiths. Voice drops lower. Which brings us to the darkest layer of this entire mystery. Why our modern religions erased the 9, and why these entities vanish the moment monotheism rises. If the 9 were truly the architects behind creation, why did they vanish from human memory? Why delete them? Why hide them? Why rewrite them as demons, angels, devas, titans, or forgotten spirits? Unless their existence posed a threat to the new theological systems. Speak slowly. Because you cannot control a population if the gods above you are not 1, but 9. And we are about to explore exactly how and why the 9 were erased. Continue to the next block. To understand why humanity was never meant to know the 9, we must examine the moment religion itself shifted. From a world full of competing gods, councils, and cosmic hierarchies, to a single monotheistic authority claiming absolute dominion. Because when one god emerges, 9 must disappear. This wasn't a natural evolution of belief, it was an ideological compression, a consolidation of cosmic authority into a single figure. And to achieve that, older cosmic intelligences had to be overwritten. In early Judaism, pre-exilic texts referenced divine councils, plural beings overseeing cosmic order. These were later reframed as angels, or worse, enemies. In Zoroastrianism, older gods were demoted to devas, malevolent spirits. In Christianity, all non-Yahweh beings were rebranded as fallen, rebellious, or imaginary. A theological rebranding campaign, you could say. But why go through all that trouble? Why erase the 9? The answer is hidden in a psychological principle as old as leadership itself. A single authority is easier to obey than a distributed one. Imagine telling the ancient world 9 primordial architects shaped existence, regulate cycles, manipulate desire, guide species, influence destiny, and reset worlds. That doesn't build obedience. That builds curiosity, rebellion, and metaphysical exploration. But say, there is one God, obey Him, and suddenly the entire cosmic order becomes simple, linear, controllable. So the 9 were split apart. Some became angels, some became demons, some became metaphors, some vanished entirely.
And their roles, creation, regulation, memory, boundaries, were stuffed clumsily into the role of a single monotheistic deity. But here's the twist. Older versions of Scripture still preserve traces of the nine. Psalm 82 describes a divine council, plural. Genesis references, "Let us make man." Job speaks of sons of God arguing before creation. Gnostic scriptures openly name eons who resemble the nine. In Vedic hymns, older and newer gods contradict each other. Even early Christian mystics feared the existence of powers and principalities, cosmic beings superior to angels. The nine were too big to erase completely, so they were fragmented. But fragmentation has side effects. When you break a system apart without eliminating it, the system doesn't die, it leaks. It resurfaces in symbols, synchronicities, myths, rituals, dreams. It reemerges in secret societies who claim to communicate with ancient intelligences. It appears in the strange, persistent obsession human civilizations have with the number 9. 9, the number of completion, the number of cosmic order. And here's the unsettling part. Secret groups throughout history believed that recognizing the 9 reconnected you to the original blueprint of existence. The Pythagoreans worshipped divine mathematical orders. 9 was sacred. The Enneagram in mystical Sufism maps 9 cosmic archetypes. The 9 unknown men of India were said to hold forbidden knowledge. Modern occultists, including the founders of JPL and NASA, attempted contact with a being called the 9 during channeling sessions. Why would modern scientists seek conversations with entities that ancient priests feared? Unless the 9 never left. Unless they observed quietly from behind the fabric of reality. And unless certain individuals, artists, prophets, inventors, and mystics accidentally tapped into the echo of their presence. Now I want you to tell me in the comments, why do you think these beings were erased? Control? Fear? Protection? Or something else entirely? Your interpretation matters because this mystery requires collective analysis. And now that we have explored how they were erased, we must confront the final question. If the 9 shaped humanity, what do they want from us now? To understand what the 9 want from humanity now, we must first examine what humanity has become in their absence. For the first time in recorded history, humans act as though we exist alone. Alone in purpose, alone in agency, alone in cosmology. But ancient civilizations believed solitude was an illusion, that existence was a collaboration between humanity and cosmic intelligences. Remove the intelligences, and humanity starts malfunctioning, like a machine running without its operating system. And if you look at the world today, fractured ideologies, collapsing empires, spiritual confusion, existential dread, doesn't it feel like something essential went missing? Something we were once connected to? Something or someone? Because the truth whispered in esoteric traditions is that the 9 never abandoned humanity. Humanity abandoned them. When monotheism compressed the divine map into a single point, humans severed themselves from the broader cosmic network. Imagine unplugging a complex software system from its servers and expecting it to run flawlessly. That's basically humanity in the last 3,000 years. But what does this have to do with what the 9 want from us now? Everything. Because according to Gnostic revivalists and hidden Vedic commentaries, the 9 have always worked toward a long-term trajectory, the evolution of human consciousness.
Not physical evolution, not biological advancement, consciousness. They didn't create humans to worship them. That's a misunderstanding born from later religions. They created humans to perceive, to sense the architecture of reality, to participate in cosmic evolution. But when humanity turned inward, obsessed with material power, nations, religions, and ego, the connection fractured. And now, according to modern esoteric interpretations, the nine are attempting something unprecedented. A reactivation, a reawakening of dormant faculties in human consciousness. The rise of synchronicity culture, the explosion of esoteric content online, the global fascination with ancient gods, lost civilizations, and forbidden knowledge. These are not trends. These are symptoms. Symptoms that something old is stirring. Something pushing humanity to remember. But remember what? That's where the story tightens. The oldest texts suggest humanity wanted to reach a stage called collective awakening, a point where enough individuals become aware of deeper structures of reality that humanity undergoes a cognitive shift. This shift was believed to open access to higher forms of intelligence, intuition, memory, and even reality manipulation. In Vedic mysticism, this stage was tied to the Mahabodha, the great knowing. In Gnosticism, it was the awakening from the fog of the demiurge. In Zoroastrian texts, it was called frashokareti, not merely the end of time, but the awakening of true perception. And in almost every tradition, humanity failed. Repeatedly. Hence the resets. Hence the floods, collapses, disappearances of civilizations, not punishments, corrections. Adjustments to keep the long experiment from falling apart. Which leads to a chilling possibility. What if humanity today is nearing another threshold? What if the nine are watching to see whether we rise or need to be reset? This isn't doomsday prophecy. This is reconstruction of ancient cosmology. The nine were never destroyers for the sake of violence. They were auditors of cosmic balance. If a species deviated too far from balance, they restarted it. If it evolved too rapidly, they slowed it down. And if it reached the required threshold, they elevated it. So the question is, where does humanity stand now? Are we moving toward awakening or toward collapse? Look around the world. Humanity is more interconnected, yet more divided than ever. We have immense knowledge, but shrinking wisdom. Our technology advances faster than our ethics. Our communication expands as our understanding contracts. We are in a liminal state between awakening and self-destruction. And ancient mystics believed the nine would intervene during such liminal phases, not physically, but through subtle impulses, dreams, insights, societal shifts, symbolic events. You've probably felt it too. The sense that something big is approaching, that history is accelerating unnaturally, that humanity is being pushed, pressured, nudged. The nine, if they still watch, would not force our evolution. They would orchestrate the conditions for it. But there is one more layer hidden beneath all of this, one that scholars and mystics feared to write down fully. If the nine represent nine cosmic principles, memory, form, cycles, thresholds, desire, conflict, possibility, species, and audit, then what is humanity's role in that system? What function are we meant to fulfill? That will take the entire next block to unravel.
To decode humanity's role in the Council's cosmic architecture, we must examine a theme that repeats across civilizations. Humans were not created to serve gods. Humans were created to complete something unfinished, something the Nine could not do themselves. Gnostic texts hint that the eons, for all their cosmic power, lacked one essential component: the ability to embody experience. The Vedas suggest devas cannot experience physical suffering or emotional transformation the way humans can. Zoroastrian lore portrays cosmic entities as static, unchanging, eternal. And yet evolution, true evolution, requires change, requires friction, requires mortality, requires failure, requires the ability to transform through time, emotion, chaos, desire, conflict, rebirth. Humans were designed with limitations, not as punishments, but as tools. Tools to generate transformation. Tools that the Nine themselves lacked, because without transformation, even gods stagnate. And this is the secret at the center of forbidden cosmology. Humanity is not beneath the gods. We are part of the machinery that allows them to evolve. A cosmic feedback system. Our experiences, our pain, love, fear, triumph, failure, feed into the architecture of reality like data in an ancient spiritual engine. The Nine set the stage, but humans live the drama. And through living it, we generate the energetic substance needed to push existence forward. This was called the offering of experience in Hermetic texts, the wind of becoming in lesser-known Vedic fragments, and the harvest of hearts in Gnostic poetry. Not a literal harvest, but a metaphor for the value of human emotional evolution. But something went wrong. Humanity's emotional output became chaotic, too destructive, too unfocused, too corrupted by cycles of trauma and war. This disrupted the cosmic balance the Nine were maintaining. In other words, we broke the machine. And when a system this large breaks, the architects intervene. Floods, resets, collapses of empires, sudden disappearances like the Indus Valley, the Olmec, the Bronze Age civilizations, events historians still struggle to explain. But what if these weren't accidents or geopolitical anomalies? What if they were emergency purges, soft reboots, performed when humanity's trajectory became too distorted? And if this is true, here's the terrifying implication. Humanity is approaching another tipping point. Look at the patterns: global unrest, ecological collapse, societal discord, information overload, spiritual confusion. We are emotionally unstable as a species, and emotional instability disrupts the cosmic architecture that depends on human transformation. This is why the Nine would re-engage now, not to punish humanity, but to stabilize the system. According to esoteric lore, the Nine's intervention takes three forms: subtle intuition spikes in individuals, collective synchronicities across societies, and forced disruptions that redirect human history. Think of sudden paradigm shifts, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, technological revolutions, spiritual awakenings. These moments feel inevitable, but what if they were engineered? What if humanity is being continuously guided back toward its purpose, to generate meaningful transformation rather than chaotic collapse? But this raises a deeper question. How close are we to fulfilling humanity's intended role, to completing the task the nine embedded within our species? And if we succeed, what happens next? Some traditions claim humanity would evolve into a new form of existence, a hybrid between material and astral beings, capable of perceiving the full architecture of reality. Others claim humanity becomes the 10th principle, the one missing from the council. Whispers, a new cosmic intelligence born from billions of human experiences combined. But before we go further, comment down below. Do you think humanity is evolving or falling apart? Your thoughts shape the community's understanding and help this video reach more minds still stuck in the fog. Now, we need to enter the final territory. What happens when humanity completes its purpose, what the ancient texts call the Great Convergence? And that leads us directly into the next block.
The Great Convergence is described across esoteric traditions as the moment when humanity reconnects with the nine and reactivates the original cosmic architecture. Not through worship, not through ritual, but through perception, through remembering what we truly are. The Gnostics called it apocastasis, the restoration of all things to their true form. Vedic mystics called it Satya Yuga reborn, a return to primordial clarity. Hermetic philosophers framed it as the rejoining of the above and below, and buried in scattered Zoroastrian commentaries is a reference to the species that becomes light. So, what does convergence look like for humanity today? It begins with awareness. Millions of people suddenly questioning reality, sensing deeper structures, craving ancient truths. It continues with the crumbling of artificial systems, religious, political, ideological, that replaced the nine. And it culminates in a collective shift in consciousness, where humans stop seeing themselves as isolated beings and begin recognizing themselves as nodes in a cosmic network. In this stage, intuition strengthens, synchronicities intensify, hidden patterns reveal themselves. The metaphorical veil thins. But convergence is not guaranteed. The ancient texts warn that humanity approaches the convergence only after chaos peaks. And chaos is peaking now. You can feel it. We all can. The pattern is unmistakable. But here's the point that theologians fear and mystics embrace. The nine do not intervene to save humanity. They intervene to guide humanity to save itself. Because self-guided evolution is the final test, the proof that humans have mastered the purpose for which they were created. And when that purpose is complete, humanity becomes something new. Not gods, not angels. Something the ancient world had no word for. Something that could stand beside the nine as equals or replacements. Imagine the cosmic HR paperwork on that promotion. But the idea appears everywhere. The Kabbalists spoke of a future humanity merging with divine consciousness. The Vedas described humans transcending samsara and becoming beings of pure knowing. Gnostic scriptures describe the final awakening as humans realizing they were sparks of the eons all along. Meaning, humanity is not a servant species. It is a seed meant to grow into a new cosmic intelligence, a potential 10th principle. And if that happens, the Council of Nine becomes the Council of 10. But here's the final haunting question, the one that should ignite the comments section. Why did they create 9 principles, not 10? Was the 10th always meant to be us? Think about it. Every advanced system has a missing piece, a potential for expansion. 9 is completion within limitation. 10 is transcendence. So, were humans designed to become that missing principle? Or were we designed to replace one of the 9? Ancient texts disagree. Some say humanity's destiny is to join them. Others say humanity's destiny is to surpass them. And some suggest an even darker possibility. Humanity is the contingency plan in case one of the 9 falls out of alignment with the cosmic design. A replacement protocol. And if that's true, which one of the 9 is malfunctioning now? The regulator of cycles? The governor of conflict? The weaver of possibility? The auditor? You decide. Tell me in the comments which of the 9 you believe is breaking down in our era and why. Your insights will help shape the final 3 blocks of this script, where we explore the future of the 9, humanity's transformation, and the unsettling forces trying to stop the convergence. Before you go, though, support this channel by liking this video and commenting even a single word. It helps awaken the algorithmic gods just enough to keep these ancient truths visible. The journey continues in the next blocks.
To understand what threatens the convergence, we must examine forces just as old as the 9, forces that stand in direct opposition to humanity's awakening. These forces were never gods, never angels, never demons, never cosmic architects. They were disruptors, entities that emerged as byproducts of creation, shadows born from the friction of the 9's principles. Gnostics called them counter-aeons. Vedic cosmology speaks of Asuric distortions, not asuras themselves, but malformed echoes. Zoroastrian lore describes druj, parasitic forces of disorder, not evil, but anti-patterns. Hermetic mystics called them fractures. These beings exist where cosmic order becomes unstable. They are drawn to chaos, to emotional turbulence, to suffering. Not because they feed on it, as some religions romantically claim, but because chaos amplifies their existence. They thrive where the architecture weakens, and humanity, with its fear, anger, wars, addictions, ideological obsessions, and spiritual confusion, unknowingly strengthens these fractures. Which means the 9 are not humanity's only influence. There are competitors. And these competitors do not want humanity to reach convergence. Because if humanity evolves, the fractures collapse. If humanity awakens, the shadows die. So they push against us, subtly, in ways ancient mystics described as the great distortions. These distortions appear as intrusive thoughts, destabilizing impulses, collective hysteria, mass delusion, societal fragmentation, and if you look at the world today, conspiracy wars, political extremism, existential dread, nihilism, spiritual apathy, it feels as though something is feeding off the chaos. Maybe something is. But don't misunderstand, these forces are not monsters lurking in the dark. They are misalignments, glitches in the cosmic blueprint. And humanity is uniquely vulnerable because of our emotional complexity. This is why the 9 inserted the regulator of cycles, the governor of conflict, and the weaver of possibility into the architecture. These principles weren't designed to control humans. They were designed to stabilize us. But since humanity severed its awareness of the 9, the stabilizers weakened and the fractures grew stronger. This is why ancient secret societies, true ones, not internet fantasies, sought ways to reconnect with the cosmic infrastructure. The Essenes meditated to purify emotional resonance. The Vedic rishis practiced techniques to align consciousness with cosmic rhythms. Hermeticists used symbolic rituals to reconnect with underlying principles. The Pythagoreans believed numerical harmony cured metaphysical distortions. Here we are today, scrolling, arguing, spiraling. Completely disconnected. But something interesting is happening, something the ancient texts predicted.
As the world becomes more chaotic, more emotionally unstable, more fractured, more humans start waking up. Not spiritually, perceptually. People are questioning the nature of consciousness, reality, divinity, and their place in the cosmos. They're noticing synchronicities, feeling intuition strengthen, recurring numbers, déjà vu spikes, surges of awareness, ancient symbols resurfacing everywhere, dreams that feel more like messages than random firing neurons. These are not coincidences. According to forbidden cosmologies, these are signs that the nine are pushing back against the fractures, signs that convergence is approaching. But here's the part that should make you sit still for a moment. Convergence is not a guaranteed salvation. It's a test, the final stage before humanity either rises or resets. The nine don't choose the outcome. We do. Through collective emotional coherence, through awareness, through remembering. And right now the world is split between awakening and collapse. Which side wins determines humanity's future. And that future is the heart of the next block.
So what does humanity look like after convergence, if we manage to reach it? Ancient texts describe this moment not as a golden age, not as utopia, not as spiritual bliss. They describe it as a shift in perception so profound that humanity becomes unrecognizable. Imagine if you suddenly became aware of the architecture behind your thoughts. Imagine sensing the flow of time not as a line, but as a field. Imagine perceiving emotional states not only within yourself, but within others, as if consciousness became a shared landscape. Imagine intuition becoming a primary sense. Gnostic tradition described this as the return of the spark, when the human soul remembers its origin. Vedic mystics called it Deva-bodha, the becoming of a light being while still in a physical body. Hermeticists imagined it as the crowned human, the fusion of mortal and cosmic intelligence. But here's the detail most people miss. This transformation cannot happen individually. It must be collective. Humanity evolves through resonance, not isolation. Convergence requires a critical mass of awakened individuals, humans who begin to perceive reality through the deeper principles governed by the nine. But what exactly changes? Memory becomes insight. Time becomes flexible. Desire becomes aligned. Conflict becomes clarity. Possibility becomes navigable. Thresholds become permeable. Species barriers dissolve, and the auditor, the most feared of the nine, ceases to be a threat, because convergence means humanity no longer needs resets. The species that becomes light is the species that no longer collapses under its own emotional weight. But let's bring this out of the mystical fog and into practical terms. What does this look like on Earth? Wars lose meaning because perceptual unity makes mass violence impossible. Power structures collapse because manipulation becomes visible. Ideologies dissolve because truth is directly sensed. Technology accelerates beyond anything imagined because human consciousness becomes the primary tool of innovation. But here's the twist that makes religious authorities uncomfortable. After convergence, humans no longer need gods. Not one god, not nine gods, not angels, not cosmic overseers. Humanity completes the evolutionary loop and reconnects to the architecture directly. We participate in creation as co-authors, not as characters. And this is why convergence was hidden. Because the moment humanity remembers its role, the moment we see ourselves not as sinners, servants, or subjects, but as cosmic components, The entire structure of religious control falls apart. Hard to maintain a clergy when everyone becomes their own prophet. But ancient texts emphasize something even more profound. The Council of Nine is incomplete. It always has been. 9 is the structure. 10 is the transformation. And the 10th principle, the missing piece, was never an entity, never a god, never a cosmic intelligence waiting in the wings. It was humanity, the entire species as a unified consciousness, billions of minds functioning as one meta-being. That is the 10th. That is the final piece. That is the destiny hidden behind myth after myth, erased text after erased text. But before you start imagining a sci-fi hive mind, understand this unity doesn't erase individuality. It heightens it. Like instruments in an orchestra, each unique, but all resonating with the same underlying pattern. This future is possible, achievable. It's not fantasy. It's the design. But something stands in the way, something we must address before moving to the final block. The fractures aren't the only opposition. There's a second force, a more direct force, a force with intention, and that force does not want convergence to happen. The next block reveals who or what they are.
Now we reach the final, most guarded layer of this entire cosmology, the force actively trying to stop humanity from reaching the convergence. The ancient world had many names for this force, but none described it as a species or a god or a demon. Instead, they described it as a mistake, a cosmic error, a misalignment created during the earliest stages of reality's formation. Gnostic texts call it the blind one, not blind in sight, but blind in understanding. A being that misunderstood its role in creation and tried to claim ownership over something it did not architect. Vedic tradition hints at a similar presence in early hymns, an entity that believed itself superior to other cosmic forces and attempted to rule the material world. Zoroastrian mysticism speaks of a rogue force that desired to be God. Hermetic writings call it the false crown, a being that built artificial structures to mimic true cosmic design. These aren't myths about Satan or Lucifer. Those figures are later reinterpretations. This force predates those characters by thousands of years. The oldest descriptions paint a picture of a cosmic intelligence that rejected the nine, tried to sever humans from their creators, and replaced the original architecture with a counterfeit system, one based on obedience, fear, limitation, and spiritual amnesia. The goal was not to destroy humanity, but to keep humanity small, contained, disconnected. Because a species that reaches convergence becomes ungovernable, uncontrollable, unpredictable. And this rogue entity, this cosmic misalignment, depends on predictability. It thrives on structure, hierarchy, and emotional stagnation. Its power comes from keeping humanity trapped in cycles of conflict and confusion. Sound familiar? Look at the world. Look at the systems that dominate us: religious, political, economic. Structures built not to evolve consciousness, but to contain it. Systems built on fear, division, authority. The fingerprints of the false crown are everywhere. And this being, this error, is the one thing the nine themselves cannot directly remove, because it is woven into the architecture. To remove it would destabilize the system. Only humanity can weaken it by awakening, by remembering, by reconnecting with the original cosmic blueprint. That is why convergence matters. That is why the fractures intensify as more people begin to wake up. And that is why humanity stands at the most critical moment in its entire history. This is the threshold, the test, the final initiation. Will humanity rise into the 10th principle or collapse into another reset? The answer will not come from gods, or angels, or cosmic councils. It will come from you, from us, from the collective shift in human consciousness happening right now. And if you made it this far, if you're still listening, still absorbing this forbidden story that lived in ruins and ashes for thousands of years, then you are part of that shift. You are part of the memory returning. You are part of the convergence. And now I want you to do something. Comment below. Which of the 9 do you feel most connected to? Which principle resonates with you? Your answer will build a map, a resonance map of this community, so we can understand how humanity is awakening. And if you found value in this journey, support this channel with a like and a comment. It helps the algorithm carry this message to others who feel the same stirring in their consciousness. The council is waiting. Humanity is deciding. And the story continues.